security. In addition to doors.
You heard that?
Yeah. Okay.
We'll tell Mitch to come up.
You're live. You can go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. Wonderful. How about you? That's a four-letter word to me, Snow. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, good afternoon and welcome to the 84th winter meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, Mayor of the City of Baltimore and President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Thank you. It is my honor to introduce the conference leadership that is here on the dais. Vice President Mick Cornett, Mayor of Oklahoma City. Second Vice President from the City of New Orleans, Mayor Mitch Landrieu. And we have our past President, the Mayor of Burnsville, Mayor Elizabeth Counts. And of course, I believe down there somewhere, now he is here, our CEO and Executive Director, Tom Cochran. I will introduce today's speakers as we move through our agenda. As a reminder, all of our plenary sessions are live streamed and available at usmayors.org and on the Conference of Mayors YouTube channel. For those of you on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, use the hashtag USCM-Winter16 when posting about the 84th winter meeting. We also invite you to download and use the official USCM app available for iPhone, iPad, and Android devices. You can download it in the App Store and on Google Play. Our newly updated app has the winter meeting agenda, a brand new Meet the Mayors, plus other features that are helpful year-round. I just want to thank you for that. So I have some important updates, two important updates. First, mayors, if you see a star on your name tag, that means that you have provided security information for our meeting with the President in the White House tomorrow afternoon. However, if you plan on going to the White House and there is no star on your name tag, then you need to check in with the USCM registration desk after the lunch is over, or you will not be able to attend the meeting. I'm going to say it one more time. If you have a star on your name tag, so look around, just like in the Dr. Seuss books, some have stars, some without. If you have a star on your name tag, that means that you are cleared security. However, if you plan on going with us to the White House and there's no star, I'm going to say it so the staff doesn't hear from you later, you need to check in with the USCM registration desk once the lunch is over. Again, no star, no attendance. And second, we are most fortunate that First Lady Michelle Obama will address us tomorrow during our late morning plenary session. That means that all attendees will need to go through security tomorrow morning on the first floor. But once you clear security, you will be able to move freely on the second floor to all the meetings and plenary sessions. Now, I would like to thank this year's sponsors for our winter meeting. Airbnb, American Beverage Association, Americas for the Arts, American Hotel and Lodging Association, HDR, JP Morgan Chase, Lion, Barger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, Starbucks Coffee Company, Target, Uber Technologies, USA Funds, Walton Family Foundation, Wells Fargo, and WeWork. It takes a lot of sponsors to put on this meeting. Can we give them all a round of applause? I'm also very pleased that we have 55 new mayors registered for this winter meeting. To help introduce and welcome them to our organization, we are going to show their names and their cities on the screen. I apologize in advance for anyone who has been mistakenly left off this list. You can make some noise if you're in here. If you see your name. I'll give a shout out to the Maryland mayor. I know that this group of mayors will be instrumental in defining the priorities of our cities and this organization for the years to come. Welcome to the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Almost 55 is a lot of new mayors. All righty. Now, well, let's give our new mayors a round of applause. And if you're here, new mayors, can you stand up for us? New mayors, stand up. Thank you. Now, I am very pleased to call on District of Columbia Mayor Muriel Bowser. For those of you who don't know, we're two separate people. Many people in the lobby have asked, are you ready for the storm? And I was like, yeah, DC is ready. I could have hung you out there. I could have said, what storm? But I didn't do that to you. I want to give Mayor Bowser a chance to welcome us. I want to thank you for hosting also a special reception for all the winter meeting participants tomorrow. Mayor Bowser.
I hate to break it to the president, but that snow is coming to Baltimore, too. Yes, welcome to Washington, D.C., everybody. I'm Muriel Bowser, and I am proud that you are all here and that the conference comes here every January to do the very important work of the conference. I want to add my congratulations to the new mayors. Last year, I was a new mayor and stood up for that introduction, and you are in for the time of your lives. It is the greatest job in the world, if you ask me, to be mayor of a jurisdiction where your constituents can call on you for the delivery of public services, human services, all the public goods that make our cities great, including education and investing in affordable housing. And if you're like me and you get to be mayor of your hometown, it's even more special. I am grateful to the services of the conference in this past year, which really allowed me to tap into a series of great resources throughout the year. We hope that you enjoy your nation's capital while you're here. My staff will be throughout the sessions and events, and I hope that you call on us to learn what we're doing about investing in affordable housing and ending homelessness and doubling down on our school reforms and improving police and community relations. We hope that not only will you enjoy the downtown, but you also will get an opportunity to look at our historic neighborhoods and learn about the city of Washington. Many people get us confused with only being a federal government town, just the White House or just the Congress, when in fact 670,000 people live here and 1,000 people every single month choose to live here as well. We look forward to welcoming you at the DC Welcome Reception tomorrow. And President, we want to thank you for your continued leadership and your focus on the things that make cities great. While we're talking about the future of our nation and how we will be led, it's incumbent upon all of us to remind those who will lead us that cities are important. Cities are on the cutting edge, and the things that will change our nation start in America's cities. Have a great conference, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mayor Bowser. Katherine Lugar is President and Chief Executive Officer of the American Hotel and Lodging Association. As the head executive of the largest trade association representing the U.S. lodging industry, she implements and directs American Hotel and Lodging Association services, and she works directly with the volunteer officers and board of directors in determining the industry's major strategic initiatives. Ms. Lugar has led the development and the execution of a 3-year strategic plan that will guide the association as it navigates the numerous opportunities and challenges that face the hospitality industry with a renewed focus on advocacy. Please welcome Ms. Lugar.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Good afternoon. There you go, in the spirit of hospitality. As head of the American Hotel and Lodging Association, I'm delighted to be here and to lend our support to this fantastic event. AHLA represents the full scope of the lodging sector, from traditional beds and breakfasts and small inns to global brands and resorts that facilitate travel and tourism in every community across this country. We are so proud of the strong bonds that hoteliers share with all of you. These partnerships, of course, facilitate economic development, job growth, and revenue for the communities where we operate and allow us to serve our guests and create long-term jobs. You all know too well how a single hotel going up in anywhere America can foster more development and transform a desolate area into a booming and a thriving economy. On a personal note, my father-in-law, Dick Lugar, was a former mayor of Indianapolis in the late 60s and 70s. Well before I ever got into the world of hotels, Dick used to tell me the stories of how getting a few major hotels built in downtown Indianapolis was a key part of that revitalization of the city. That story has always stuck with me. You see, transforming communities is just one part of it. The lodging industry is a driving force in the American economy. In fact, the travel industry alone generated $1.4 trillion to the U.S. economy. The hotel sector has been experiencing record growth for the past 5 years, now directly employing more than 2 million Americans across the country. And business travel alone, get this, mayors, generates $140 billion in tax revenue. I'm also proud to tell you that 2015 was a banner year for our industry. We welcomed some 5 million guests into our properties, more than ever before. And with now 100,000 rooms under construction, it's great news for the communities we operate and the good jobs that we provide. Our industry thrives every day on competition and on innovation. And as our national economy adapts to new technologies and consumer demands, our industry is adapting too. Everywhere you look in our industry, you see that evidence of innovation. From embracing new technologies that advance security systems that keep our guests safe. And our members, of course, are on the front lines of creating guest experiences that open pathways for increased partnerships and opportunities with local businesses and culture. Yet, even as our industry nimbly adapts to an evolving landscape, we are concerned about a troubling trend related to the increase in commercial activity in the short-term rental marketplace. In fact, earlier today, AHLA released a report conducted by leading researchers at Penn State University and then based on an unprecedented amount of national data that reveals a sobering trend. You see, companies like Airbnb would have you believe that they simply allow individuals to make some extra money or supplement their income by occasionally renting a room or a couch in their home. In fact, make no mistake about it, people have been doing that for decades, whether through the classifieds or through Craigslist. That is not our concern today. Let us be clear about that. Occasional room rentals are not a challenge. The data we released today, though, showed a very different story. 30% of a company like Airbnb's revenue is now driven by commercial landlords who rent units 360 days a year. Mega operators who own and operate 3 or more units a year have increased by 80% in the past year alone. In the spirit of hospitality to these commercial operators on these newer platforms, we say welcome, right? But as the smallest beds and breakfast in our industry can attest, it does come along with some ground rules to be a good neighbor and to take care of your guests. It means abiding by zoning laws so that residential areas and commercial apartments are not used for transient commercial activity, often driving up the cost of housing, as so many others have pointed to. It means getting a business license and paying your taxes, and it certainly means abiding by the safety and security standards that have been on the books in your communities for many years to, above all, protect your guest. You see, our industry has flourished by operating on a level and a legal playing field that's highly competitive. We believe that it's crucial that all commercial lodging operators, including those on newer platforms like Airbnb, respect the rules that protect the safety and security of our guests and the surrounding neighborhoods. We, of course, mayors, understand the vital role that you all play in taking action to protect consumers and creating a fair marketplace by ensuring that this unregulated commercial activity stops. Let me close by saying that we look forward to working with all of you to not only address this growing problem, but to support you in your efforts to have strong, vibrant local economies. Thank you for all that you do to support travel and tourism more broadly in your cities. We look forward to only building on the partnership with you in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katherine. I want to note that we are joined by the President of the National League of Cities, Melody Colbert Keene, council member from Joplin, Missouri. Please stand. I know I saw you in here. Thank you very much. We work closely with the NLC on key priorities for America's cities, and I want to thank Melody for being here with us today, and I also want to thank your Executive Director, Clarence Anthony. I know that our advisory board and the Little Rock Mayor, Mark Stodola, have recently been elected as the NLC's second vice president, so congratulations. Again, I'm very grateful for the partnership with NLC. We're excited to continue our successful partnership with Scotts Miracle-Gro Company to improve our nation's cities through gardens and green space development. Additionally, we are proud to announce that we will continue to offer this grant program to your cities for another 2 years. This year's Winning Cities programs will receive a 3-year grant totaling $40,000. The Grow 1000 Gardens and Green Space Grants Awards program was created to promote and recognize mayoral leadership in this area. Let me now call on Sue Locke, Director of Corporate and Community Partnership at the Scotts Miracle-Gro Company, who will announce this year's Winning Cities. Sue?
Thank you, Mayor. So in 2012, Scotts and the U.S. Conference of Mayors started this partnership, and we had one singular goal in mind: to bring more gardens and green spaces to communities across the U.S. And I often get the question, so when they hear about the partnership, people ask, what kind of projects are you doing with the mayors? And to all the mayors who have applied over the last couple of years, I want to thank you. The projects have been so transformative and so meaningful and thoughtful that we really did not expect this outcome. Just in 2015, the recipients followed the trend of more urban gardens being created and urban farms being created in our urban centers in Dallas and also in West Sacramento and Hartford, Connecticut. And I could have sworn that in Rochester, New York, I think Mayor Warren probably had the entire city come out to encourage the development of a new community garden education center. But I certainly could go on with more and more examples. And certainly 2016 promises to have more high-impact projects as well. But I also want to call to your attention, on your chairs, we had an information sheet that talked a little bit about the facts and data and the results that our program has generated over the last couple of years. So right now we're at 680 projects, and if my geography serves me right, I think Nebraska and Wyoming are the only states where Grow 1000 we haven't had a project there. So I think if we have mayors there, kind of get on the ball there and apply for a grant. But also we have 1,614,000 square feet of green space. Over 50,000 youth have been impacted by our education outreach, more than 8,000 garden plots. And of particular note this year, to date we've supported about 41 pollinator projects. In 2016, we're going to be supporting more of those projects that are going to create more habitats and attract spaces for bees, butterflies to increase their population. And also, we have 266,000 pounds of food are donated annually through our Grow 1000 program. But along with those hard facts and data, we're also seeing that our gardens and green spaces are offering more answers to hunger issues, and also addressing health concerns that more of our cities are seeing, and also giving a greater sense of hope in terms of combating urban blight and also increasing urban revitalization. So again, thank you all for your participation in this program. And also, just before we announce the winners, I want to thank Tom Cochran and his staff for all that you've done to support the program over the years, Tom. It's really been very much appreciated. So, on to our winners this year. I'm going to announce the grant recipients, and I think we're going to have them all come up here, and we're going to take one group photo with the check, and then we will do individual checks to the side here after this. So, the recipients of the $40,000 Grow 1000 grants for 2016 are the City of Atlanta, the Atlanta Urban Agricultural Expansion Project, the City of St. Louis, Missouri, and the St. Louis Riverfront Butterfly Byway, City of New York, and the Pleasant Village Community Garden, and the City of Providence, Rhode Island, General Street Park Community Garden. So let's hear it this year for the winners.
All right, congratulations to all of our winners, and thank you very much, Sue. I am pleased to announce a new partnership. The U.S. Conference of Mayors and VSP Global will partner to provide free vision care through Eyes of Hope, 1 Million More initiative. The 10-city tour will help increase access for free vision care to thousands of adults and children in need across our country. The organizations will co-host multi-day events that will offer no-cost eye exams and glasses for adults and for children. The campaign will provide both an immediate and long-term impact. VSP Global will work with each city to expand access to eye care services to those in need, ultimately providing care and increasing access. The Eyes of Hope 1 Million More initiative supports VSP's global broader goal to provide access to vision care to 1 million people by the year 2020. Thank you, VSP Global, for your partnership and your leadership on this important issue. So over the next 3 days, almost 300 mayors will engage with President Obama, the First Lady, key members of Congress, the cabinet, top business officials, and thought leaders from across the country. This past year, bipartisan progress was made on some of our key priorities, such as reauthorization of the Surface Transportation Act, clap for that, passage of a budget agreement, and an update of the nation's education laws. I want to take a moment to talk about the great work of America's mayors in helping secure passage of the new surface transportation law signed last month. This was the first long-term reauthorization in a decade, and we're turning the corner in getting Congress to understand that transportation is not simply about what state DOTs want. Mayors must have more say over how future resources for transit, roads, and alternative transportation are invested. This law starts to move us in that direction, and we're so fortunate to have leadership from President Barack Obama and our former colleague, Secretary Anthony Foxx. Working with Chairman Bill Schuster and Senate Chairman Jim Inhofe, these leaders pressed forward on a bipartisan basis to get legislation enacted. Our friend, Chairman Schuster, has attended USCM meetings many times, and Chairman Inhofe will be with us tomorrow morning around 9 a.m. so that we can convey our thanks for his efforts. I want to thank all of the mayors who worked on this legislation, with a special thanks to our outstanding Transportation Committee Chair, Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed. Thank you very much. And I have a special thank you for our Vice President, Mick Cornett of Oklahoma City. Thank you for your many efforts on this legislation. And to both you and New York Mayor Bill de Blasio for leading our Transportation Lobby Day. Together, we have laid a strong foundation, one that we can build upon in the coming years as we work to drive more resources into investments that underpin so much of our economy and the quality of our life. There's one more year left with the Obama administration and the 114th Congress, and important work remains to be done on the many priorities of the American people and America's mayors. But at the same time, we're now on the cusp of the 2016 elections, and over the next few months, both major parties will select their candidates for president, and the November elections for the White House and Congress will be upon us. Over our organization's 84-year history, these national elections have been our opportunity to help set the tone for the next administration and the next Congress. As these elections move forward, mayors across the country will actively engage on behalf of candidates and political parties. But more than any other national organization, I truly believe that we, as mayors, best understand the needs and the desires of the American people, and that in more cases than not, our priorities are not defined by political association. That is why this past fall I convened our elected and appointed leadership in Baltimore. There we held very honest and direct discussions on what should be our priorities for the coming elections. After much work by mayors from both parties and from cities of all sizes and regions of the country, we have developed our 16-point compact for the 2016 election. The major themes of these priorities are invest and protect. The idea of invest and protect comes directly from our internal discussions, and it has been validated by the 2015 Menino Survey of Mayors, which was done by our partners at Boston University's Initiative on Cities to identify the top state and federal priorities of U.S. mayors. At our annual meeting in San Francisco, and over the course of last summer, 89 of you have responded to this survey. On the notion of invest, you said that the aging and underfunded physical infrastructure of our country is the greatest shared challenge facing America's cities. And on the theme of protect, the survey found that mayors broadly support police reforms that have been laid out by the President's task force, but important details still need to be determined. These are just two of the areas where the survey found mayors to be aggressively pursuing best practices and partnership with other levels of government. The research team is here with us today, led by Initiative on Cities Director Graham Wilson. Graham, could you please stand and be recognized for your hard work? Are you waving? He's over there in the corner. It's okay to sit down. We won't put you to work at lunch. Mayors know that government cannot solve all of the world's problems, but when it comes to issues like reducing violence and creating the infrastructure that businesses, workers, and families need to succeed, there simply can be no debate that our federal government has a responsibility to act. And I'm not asking that every mayor here speak to every issue listed when you engage with candidates and during the national elections. But what I'm asking is that we be willing to talk about real issues, reducing violence, greater investment in transportation and water infrastructure, and limiting unfunded mandates. Just last week, I, along with a number of our leadership mayors, engaged in a major forum in Iowa. There we spoke about our priorities to a number of the candidates and to the media. And I know that in cities across the country, candidates will come to campaign. I ask you all to help out and put our priorities, the priorities of American people, before those who are seeking federal office. When I became USCM president, I said that we are not waiting for Washington to act. Every day, mayors push forward on issues such as violence reduction, income equity, job creation, educational excellence, and so much more. Over the course of this winter meeting, we will highlight the leaderships that mayors provide on these key issues as we continue to learn from each other. But I believe that there are national priorities that demand national attention and national action, and demand a response from those who are seeking to lead us. By the act of being here today and being an active part of the Conference of Mayors, each of you have demonstrated your commitment to action. And I thank you for your engagement. And together, we will help build a stronger America. Thank you. We are now going to move into a discussion of one of the two major themes contained in our 16-point compact, protect. This is an issue that is very personal to me. As you know, after the death of Freddie Gray, Baltimore broke out in civil unrest. Following that tragic series of events, Baltimore experienced its highest homicide rate per capita in history. This was the year after we reached the second lowest homicide rate in our history. Unfortunately, I know that many of your cities also face increasing gun violence, particularly homicides, and a breakdown in the relationship between police and communities that they serve. It is because of this alarming trend that reducing violence and strengthening police community trust have been top priorities for me as mayor of Baltimore and the Conference of Mayors. In just the last year, our working group of mayors and police chiefs produced a set of recommendations on strengthening police-community relations. Many of those were adopted by the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. Following the events in Ferguson, New York City, Baltimore, and other cities around the country, our former president, Sacramento Mayor Kevin Johnson, appointed our working group, which was guided by Gary Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, and I sincerely want to thank you for your leadership in that task force. We are now working with the COPS Office of the Department of Justice on implementation of the President's Task Force recommendations, and I appreciate that the Office Director, Ron Davis, is here with us today. Where are you, Ron? Thank you very much for being here. I wanted you to know, and make sure that you know, that we now have a dedicated page on the USCM website that provides you with information on the exemplary efforts in cities in this area and the resources available to help you implement the task force recommendations. And again, I want to thank Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson and the USCM staff for making that happen. In August, I convened a conference call of mayors whose cities were experiencing spikes in homicide this year. We discussed a set of recommendations for quick action by the administration and by Congress. The leadership presented them to Attorney General Loretta Lynch during a summit on violence she held in early October. When we discussed them with her privately the following month, she said that we were spot on. And today, we're going to talk about the challenges our cities face relating to violence and police community trust, and successful efforts we can undertake to address these challenges. Recent events in Paris, San Bernardino, and in Philadelphia have added to our concerns about potential terrorist attacks aimed at our residents and our police officers. We will discuss these issues with our esteemed panel of 4 leaders who live these issues every day. Chicago Mayor RAHM EMANUEL was first elected mayor in 2011 and was re-elected last year. He served in top positions in both the Obama and Clinton White Houses and was a member of Congress in between those administrations. Mayor EMANUEL has always been one to take on the most pressing and difficult issues on behalf of both his city and the nation. New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu, our second vice president, is about halfway through his second term as mayor. He previously served as lieutenant governor of Louisiana, and Mayor Landrieu has made reducing violence a top priority of his administration. And next, MORIEL has been the president of the National Urban League since 2003. He served as mayor of New Orleans for 2 terms, and he is a past president of the Conference of Mayors, having led our organization during the tragedy of 9/11. It's interesting to note that both Mitch Landrieu and MORIEL are now sons of former mayors of New Orleans, and that their fathers also served as president of the conference. And finally, Sam Dotson joined the St. Louis Police Department in 1993 and has served as its chief since 2012. Before becoming chief, he was operations director for the city of St. Louis. I want to welcome them all to the stage. All right, we're all good? I am going to start the panel by raising a few questions. Mayors, you will notice that there are index cards at your table. If you would like to share a thought or raise a question, please write it down and hand it to one of the USCM staff members, and they will bring it up. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Make sure in your quest on the index card to put your name and the city which you represent. Thank you. So, thank you all very much for joining me on what I believe is one of the most pressing topics that we face right now. And let's start on a brief update on the crime situation in your cities and the biggest problems that you currently face. And I'll start with you.
Well, I would say they're consistent, which is guns and gangs. And obviously, as cities, we're not islands, but we can put in place some of the toughest gun laws in the sense of criminal access. But guns coming, from, we know what shops they're coming from, where they're coming from, and having a comprehensive national policy or regional policy would be much better than trying to create your own policy. So that would be one. The other thing is gangs. And you can't allow gangs to become an alternative family structure for kids where those values are basically transferred to children, which is why we have put in place the largest, most comprehensive after-school summer jobs program. We now have 27,000, 26,000 kids in summer jobs and close to about 25,000 kids in after-school program. Even last year, while overall crime over the 4 years is down about 35%, we had an increase in shootings, an increase in homicides. Adolescents as a victim of shootings declined in the city of Chicago, proving what we all know, that alternatives for kids, whether with a mentor, an adult, in a safe place, in a supervised activity, in a positive activity, can have an impact on their safety. But the 2 biggest threats in the sense of basic security and safety in parts of the city, guns and gangs.
Thank you. Chief Dotson?
Very similar to Chicago's experiences. Guns are our #1 concern. St. Louis had 188 murders last year, the most that we've seen since the mid-90s. 179 of those were committed with firearms. Guns are our #1 problem. And when we do make arrests for individuals with guns, we see a court system that doesn't give us an outcome. And by an outcome, I mean no change in job status, no change in education status, doesn't deal with substance abuse issues. We have to deal with those issues if we're going to get at violence. Gangs are always an issue. And I think we always have to talk about police-community relations. I think in one of the sessions they talked about the accountability that has to happen. We have to get that. If we don't build on that accountability, we can't attack the crime problem.
Thank you. Mayor Landrieu?
Thank you very much. There are a couple of things that are going on that are trends that I believe that we all need to recognize. Both Mayor RAWLINGS-BLAKE and Mayor EMANUEL in St. Louis, Mayor MORIEL, you had this when you were in New Orleans. The violence on the streets of America is manifesting itself in a number of different ways all at the same time. When I was able to take over, the police department was for the most part bankrupt. We were under threat of consent decree. We invited the Justice Department to come in and begin to work with us on police-community relations. Simultaneously therewith, the violence on the streets of America, very similar to Baltimore, Chicago, we see it happening all over the place. And then laid on top of that, you have Boston, you have Philadelphia, you've got San Bernardino, and you have Paris. And what's beginning to happen, and the mayors know this already, is that cities are not special interest groups anymore. We're partners with the federal government, and cities are becoming the tip of the spear on not only national security, but public safety as well. And you have to do it in a way that honors and respects, of course, the constitutional rights of the citizens. There is a lot of stuff happening at one time that all has to be managed with the appropriate manpower, resources that, quite frankly, the cities of America don't have right now. So although crime has generally been going down in America from 1996 through today, the temperature is much higher. The national security threat around potential terrorism on the streets of America has people at a heightened level of awareness, and we're being forced to confront all of those things. And my plea would not only be for mayors to share all of the things that we're doing on the streets, but also to talk to Congress about the need to understand and to see that on the street, where it matters, where the things are taking place, whether it's federal employees through the FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshal's Office, or whether it's the police officers, they're actually functioning as one unit now, and they have to have the resources to make the streets of America safe. And so we hold ourselves out as partners with the federal government and the state governments to make our city safe. But we're at a tough time right now. We have to figure it out. And of course, like always, we have to make it all work within a certain amount of time and with limited resources.
Thanks. Mayor Emanuel?
I wanted to pick up on one thing the police chief said. And if you go through prisons, there's a common set of themes, but the most common theme, high school dropout, as it relates to violence. And not only in the after-school summer jobs. Now, Chicago's at a record high, near 70% graduation rate. Our sophomore class is on track, according to the University of Chicago, to hit 84% graduation rate. In the long term, not short term, long term, biggest impact you can make on gun violence, getting kids to walk across the stage on graduation day. And that is the biggest impact that we as mayors can have. And so, after school, summer jobs, but 4 years ago, Chicago had a graduation rate of 57%, which means 43 were dropping out. Today it's nearly 70%, and we're on track to hit 84%, and that would have the biggest impact. Obviously, we got to, right now, hit hard on guns getting into criminal hands, hit hard on giving kids an alternative to gang life as a family structure, so after schools and summer jobs, but getting them to graduation day rather than to a courtroom, that's how you make the biggest impact on violence.
Thanks. Now I'm going to hit you with two questions, President MORIAL. I want to hear some feedback from you on that first question, but I also I'm going to pose this next question to everyone. I'm going to start with President MORIAL. We all know that there's, I should say, while I remain optimistic in spirit, I think realistically we know that there's no reasonable gun legislation or reform that's going to come out of Congress. So as a community and as mayors, what do you think that we can do to make a difference when it comes to getting guns off of our street and reducing violence in our communities?
Good. First of all, let me thank the Conference of Mayors for bringing me back. Let me thank you, Mayor Stephanie, and I appreciate the leadership of all of my colleagues. I'm the old guy up here, but I still got my hair, Mitch. I haven't gone gray ramen chief. And I want to contextualize this because I've been where all of you guys, men and women, are today. Because I spent 8 years as the mayor of my beautiful, beloved hometown that Mitch now leads, and led the most successful police reform effort in modern American history. We had 400 plus murders. We cut it by 2/3. We led the nation with the most number of civil rights complaints in 1994. By the time 2001 came, it was infinitesimal. What happened, though, is that after I left office, my successor dismantled the police reform efforts, leaving this mayor with the challenge of having to start the process all over again. Now I sit in this seat as the leader of a nation's historic civil rights organization. Let me say this to all of you. You got to own this issue. You got to own the problem. You've got to own the solution. You can't outsource it to a great police chief, although that police chief is key and is a partner. You've got to own the details. The second thing, you've got to avoid getting boxed in between whether you owe an obligation to the hardworking men and women who are police officers and the community. You got to avoid, quote, choosing, right, between one or the other, or seeing your obligation. Your obligation is to the people. I told the police officers in my city when one challenged me and said, and this is important to know, will you back me if you are elected? I said, I will back you when you're right. His answer was, I don't need you when I'm right. Now, the point of the matter is that the truth is that you do have small numbers of police officers who hold that opinion. But the challenge in many cities is the infection of culture. The idea that you've got to, quote, back each other no matter what. No public employee, no elected official should ever support that notion and that idea. So I want to say this to get in response to the essential question. When I say own the problem, this nation is crying out for the national voice of the mayors to be lifted on all of these issues. They have these debates in this town between special interest groups about gun legislation, but you've got to go to the funerals. You've got to investigate the deaths. You've got to deal with the consequences. We've got to make the discussion about these issues very real. Mayor EMANUEL, Mayor LANDRIEU, many of you have put together very effective local summer jobs program. It's time for the national government to put some money on the table to put young people to work. So it's just, I would say this just to turn it over. I really believe that this is going to define American cities in the future. We've got to build bridges between police and community. We've got to recognize that the recession had a devastating effect and left many people locked out of the economic system. And the voice of mayors, own the problem, own the solution. New mayors, know the status and the condition of your police department. Ask the question. Ask the question. How many civil rights complaints do we have? How many pending lawsuits do I have? Find out, get the facts, know what the situation is, because only by knowing can you avoid being bit, surprised, ambushed sometime down the line because of what you didn't know. Ask the question, find out where you are, and then you're in a better position to own the solution.
Thank you. Mayor EMANUEL?
I got nothing to add, but I'm going to be a Jewish mother. You got to move that microphone up. It's just, there it is.
I need to borrow your mic. This is
They have one right there for you.
it's a
on the-
Janet Jackson mic.
You want to break out in the video?
Yeah.
All right, we do have another one right there on the table for you if you want to swap. I'm going to go to Chief Dotson. And the basic question is, what can we do absent national legislation to reduce the proliferation of guns in our street?
Well, I think the president's action, the executive order, is a great first step. But all politics are local, so municipalities need to be able to regulate their gun laws at the local level, similar to what Chicago tries to do. Here's the reality in my state. We have a state that has incredibly liberal gun laws. They're controlled by people that don't live in the urban centers. They make legislation to get reelected. Urban centers, St. Louis, Kansas City, Mayor Sly James, we're left to deal with the proliferation of guns. You're left to control your budgets, our budgets. We have to control the guns with legislation and meaningful outcomes. We've asked for something as simple from a state court in St. Louis as an armed offender docket. Not to put people into jail, but to track the successes. Become experts at dealing with individuals that are in a cycle of violence, that don't have the education, the substance abuse issues. Become experts in that, and then find the pathways. Summer jobs are a great, economics are a great answer. We have to have the ability at the local government to have the outcomes in the court and legislation to keep guns out of the hands of those young people that you're talking about.
Mayor Landrieu?
Yeah, let me just jump in the invitation that President MORIEL gave us, and I agree with him. You have to run to the fire on this. It should be clear to everybody in this room that something has gone terribly wrong in America at the moment. We have dust-ups all over the country. Those are not just one-offs. So the first thing that we should say is when people say it's local till it's not. We have the issue with Flint. The mayor's here today. That's a local issue until it's not, and now it's an issue of national concern. You have the bombings in Boston. Well, that was local until it was not. And the whole message here that I think we need to continue to send to Congress is that we are not a special interest group. We are partners in making sure that the streets of America are safe. Now, this is the only place in America where people can always have an either or an or, as though the world was that clear. And all of us know that it's a lot more complicated than that. So just on the issue of your police departments, I think the president said it right. You need to ask the question. You don't really have to wait for the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice to show up on your doorstep like they did with me. If you get into it and you ask yourself, are my police officers being hired correctly? Are they being supervised correctly? Are they being fired at the appropriate level? Do you have the right kind of oversight when there is a police-involved shooting? My experience in the last 5.5 years, and we've had 5 consent decrees that we have worked through, is that the community will work with you if you work with them and you get ahead of it. If there's a police officer involved shooting, and there is the appropriate oversight, and it's transparent inquiry, and you move into that, the community more often than not, will get to the right place. And in some instances, it is a prosecution, and in some instances, it's not. And we've had both in this. They're all painful to go through. They're all hard. You got to find that. Now, on the side that Mayor Emanuel talked about, I think long-term, there's no question about it. The best way to keep kids out of harm's way is to give them options. So when you're fighting violence, police chiefs rightly say, why are you looking at me to be the father and the mother of every child, or to be the social worker or the psychiatrist? You know we have a huge problem with early childhood education, substance abuse, mental health treatment. Just last night in the city of New Orleans, Mayor, I'm terribly sorry to report a 3-year-old was shot while they were in bed with their grandmother, a gun discharged. We don't know the facts around yet how that exactly happened or not, but you continually have these issues. And I know that all of the mayors, you do this. When you go to a funeral and you're looking at somebody in the coffin, whether it's a police officer or it's a citizen that was killed, dead is dead. And there are way too many people, police officers and citizens, that are being killed, and the mode of operation is a firearm. So one thing that I think all of America could agree on is that we need better gun safety. We don't have to get into the issue of either or. Gun safety is something that everybody in America needs to get better at, because we die at higher levels and at higher rates than anywhere else in the entire world. And certainly we have a more than our fair share of it in the city of New Orleans. But I think the president is right. On this issue, mayors need to lead. We are the ones who are there that can understand the complicated nature of having to make sure that the police officers are doing the right thing, the community is protected, and they're actually working together, because at the end of the day, everybody's from the same neighborhood. It's the people of New Orleans who are policing New Orleans, whether you're on the law enforcement side, the community side, whether you're with the faith-based community or the not-for-profits. But things at some point in time, the streets are telling us that everything is not okay. And you can't turn a blind eye to this. You have to turn to it, analyze it, walk through it, go through the difficult discussions, as painful as they may be. That's the only way we're going to come out on the other side and be better.
I want to add a couple of perspectives about the nature of violence in urban communities today. There is an organized element of drugs and gangs operating not only within many cities, but also in concert with the same types of activities occurring in other cities. It involves the transfer of illegal narcotics, stolen weapons, fenced property, and what also goes along with this is the organized nature in which gangs operate, and they operate like gangs operated in the 30s. There are people specifically enumerated within these groups as shooters. They're people that carry out the intimidation of witnesses, the effort to take the lives of those that may be invading on turf. There's an organized element to the violence that's occurring in many American cities. Now, here's what's true. What's true is that there are only a handful of police departments in the country with the sophisticated tools, resources, and mechanisms to infiltrate some of these illegal groups of really domestic terrorists, because they're preying on citizens in our communities. So we also have to think about how we can build a stronger partnership with DEA, ATF, FBI in order to be able to do that. The other thing you've got to recognize is that 80%, 70 to 80% of all shootings in most cities are never reported. They are never reported. So you've got to look at new mechanisms to report those shootings. The final thing I want to say on police community issues. I established, when I was mayor, a protocol whenever a police officer was involved in a shooting. And it involved an automatic and immediate investigation by the Office of Municipal Investigations. It involved a press protocol where there would be no opinionating by any, with all due respect, police public information officers, anyone who worked for me, about, quote, what their sense of the incident was. Because I learned very early that communities' issues are inflamed when there's a rush to judgment. And what all too often you find with these incidents is you don't know instantaneously all of the facts. And your job is to ensure that there's a levelness and fairness. Now, that's not easy because sometimes you have police organizations and unions that want to get out there and make, offer an opinion about something. But here's the point. You need, if the police department is under your jurisdiction and control, you need a protocol. How will we respond in the event one of our officers being involved shooting a citizen or shooting at a citizen? What is our protocol? And you've got to have a protocol, and you can be a bit transparent with members of the city council, police unions, and others about what this protocol certainly will be. So I just wanted to get that in, because I think as you think about how I can deal with it from a mayor's perspective, you also have to think about the very escalating public relations dynamics which occur because of the advent of social media, body cams, dash cams, and things of this sort that are new to these times that didn't exist 20 or even 10 years ago.
Mayor Emanuel?
I wanted to pick a little up on what Mark said and also the police superintendent on 2 points. One, we have gangs in all our cities, but the truth is there's a few individuals in those gangs who are creating the disproportionate amount of violence. So as it relates to how, without federal legislation on gun control, do you impact So we have 22 police districts. So in the 6th district, south side of the city of Chicago, we've embedded DA, ATF, FBI, U.S. Attorney, and they're not allowed after the end of the day, they don't go to their own office. They're in the district, the 6th district, they're housed, they have their own office, they operate there, targeting the most violent individuals, individuals with the highest kind of heat number in the sense of causing violence. So it's focused on the individuals with the greatest propensity and using both federal and our own resources and all of us in a coordinated way. So we're trying that out, see what impact that would have. The second, I don't know about other places, but there are a few guns where the disproportionate of guns that arrive on our street that we trace to gun violence happen. Now in Chicago, we've passed, I think, considered pretty modern and top-of-the-line gun legislation, but we're not an island in the sense of proximity to other states and other areas. And there's 3 gun shops right over the city's border that play a big role in the guns on our streets. We'd like to see, at least statewide, the videoing of all gun sales and the type of legislation we have in Chicago become a statewide model. So you can target the stores where a disproportionate of the guns come and the individuals who create a disproportionate amount of the gun violence on your streets. And in one place I think the federal government can be helpful. They have entities, they have some handcuffs given that what Congress has written about them, but in a coordinated way, in a very localized way, going after a few individuals who are creating a disproportionate amount of the violence and targeting them with both state, federal, and local resources in a very concentrated way.
I certainly agree the embedding of the federal officers is helpful. We've done that in Baltimore. We have the embedded officers, and we have that collaboration between all levels of the federal government and the prosecutors, and it's been very helpful in tracking down. We had one seller of illegal guns that was coming in every weekend from, I think it was outside of the state. It's somewhere in Tennessee, I think. Every weekend, at least 20 guns, every weekend, without fail. And we were able, through that partnership, to track that down. And that is one of the issues that we brought up in our meeting with the Attorney General, that this is not about cutting us a check. This is about using the federal resources and our federal partnerships in ways that affect real change in our community. Chief Dotson?
Quickly, that's the #1 challenge that law enforcement is having around resources. And it's these partnerships, much in the way that we did in the 90s to target the crack cocaine war. The cartels that we're seeing now, the drug systems, are poly-drug organizations that will deliver heroin to St. Louis, methamphetamine to New Orleans. Right. They'll deliver different drugs. Without the federal focus on that, and we've said it to Ron Davis and to the Attorney General, that's where we need the resources to focus, to disrupt the cycle. Heroin is an epidemic in all of our cities, but you can still get crack, you can still get marijuana where it's not legal, you can still get the other drugs.
You know, I wanted to add something, and this just is a reflection. You know, I remember sitting here about 15 or so years ago, 16, 17 years ago, when the issue of gun violence was really gripping and ripping America's cities. And like so many of you, we had a frustration about the inability to really move any meaningful, if you will, gun safety legislation through the Congress. Now, this was just after the Brady bill had been passed, and there was actually in place then the anti-assault weapon ban. Of course, we were so, if you will, frustrated by what we were facing that 30 of us actually filed class action lawsuits against the gun industry. And some of you all may remember that. Now, we were not that successful, and we learned about the power of the organized interests that support guns in this country. But I'm proud that we had, if you will, the courage and the guts, 30 of us, and Rich Daley and I were the first to stand up and say something certainly needed to be done. If all we can do now is talk about a strong, airtight background check system for all purchases of guns in this country, and #2, a ban on assault weapons. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and those fellas that wrote the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment, I do not think they were thinking about an AK-47 or a Glock. I don't think that's what they had in mind. And the duck hunters and the deer hunters and all of the sportsmen of the world, I don't think they use those type of weapons either to do, in fact, what they do. And we've got to confront and not be frustrated that there's strong interests in this country. We've got to define the issue, that it's about safety, it's about military-style assault weapons, it's about a strong, airtight background check system, and I really urge the mayors to lend their voice to that, because this police-community relations, drug, it all goes hand in hand. It's a vicious circle and a cycle in our communities, and you can't have a voice on one without having a voice on the other, and mayors can integrate and bring all of these issues together.
Thank you. So I'm going to sprinkle in one of the questions from one of the mayors, and this is from Mayor Yady. And I don't know what part of New Jersey you're from, because that handwriting is a little, where's Mayor Yady? All right, what part of New Jersey? All right. Central, got it. Okay, I just couldn't read it.
We're not going to answer until you tell us what exit you're on the highway.
On the turnpike. All right. So, question
Whether
from
you're in
Mayor
the Philly or New York media market, right?
Yeah. So, the question from Mayor Yady: where in the conversation regarding police-community relations is a specific topic regarding personal responsibility?
Yeah, I'll take it. In every discussion I have with the faith-based community, the not-for-profit community, whether it's in the African-American community or the others, everybody always starts with personal responsibility. There's not a discussion that takes place, and this is a misnomer, as though people don't talk about this and engage in this discussion. Every mayor that I've been in community with always say, essentially, everybody is responsible for themselves. And you have to, there's only so much the government can do. Even on our best day, when we're performing perfectly, you can't ever replace a father or a mother. You can't really ever replace a church. You can't ever replace a coach. Essentially, the community has got to make sure that they're all in, or none of this can be done. But that doesn't, so this is the either or. Everybody wants personal responsibility or something else. It's everything. One particular strategy that I wanted to mention to you, and RAHM alluded to this a little bit earlier, in terms of getting after the small number of people that are committing most of the crimes in certain neighborhoods, which is essentially what you have. It's a three-pronged strategy. I'm looking at my friend Michael Nutter, who together we started Cities United, and you can find all of this. The multi-agency gang strategy. RAHM just identified it for you. In one neighborhood in his city, in a police precinct, it isn't just the local police officers. They're the ones who are leading it, but you got FBI, ATF, DEA, the U.S. Marshal's Office, and guess what they're doing? They're targeting individuals that they know through intelligence that are part of gangs, and they're going after them in something called the Group Violence Reduction Strategy, where they have their eyes and their ears on the best intelligence that we could find, and we need more resources to do it. And then once they identify who those folks are, they actually need to get either the U.S. attorney or the district attorney to identify which one of them has the best chance at prosecuting the most of them all at once. Now, it used to be in the old days that if one person shot and killed somebody, you'd arrest them and you would indict them and convict them for one murder. That's not the strategy anymore, and this is starting to happen, and this works, where the U.S. attorney and the district attorney are starting to arrest these guys with conspiracy theories like they use with the RICO statutes. And in New Orleans, just in the last 2 years, we have indicted and convicted over 119 gang members and reduced the level of violence in those neighborhoods fairly significantly. Now, there's still way too much of it, but this is a tried and true practice that, in my opinion, once it's been done, now needs to have the resources of the community. And at the end of the day, the part of the group violence reduction strategy that works is actually calling the young men in who you know into court and saying to them, we know who you are. We know who you hang out with. We know what you do. We're going to give you a choice today because we want you to be okay. And if you choose well, we'll put you in front. We'll give you mental health services, substance abuse. We'll work with you for job training. But if you don't choose well and exercise your responsibility the way you're supposed to, then we are going to have to do what is necessary in a constitutional, thoughtful way to protect you from each other and to protect everybody else from you. And that strategy is working, but you need the resources. You need the boots on the ground. This is the only discussion we're having where people will leave, folks that need to fight the fight on the ground without the resources to make it happen. We don't do that in national security. We don't leave folks on the field. We give them the resources we need. This is a national problem, and in some neighborhoods, it's an epidemic. And we need to treat it like that in the United States of America. We're not doing that now.
I do want to, though, take on 2 points. There's a place where we collectively, in the public side, can reinforce personal responsibility. And our public transportation system, we now have the largest reentry second chance program in the United States. I believe the best way to make sure that an ex-convict is not a ex-offender is not a reoffender is a job. But I can provide the opportunity, but you have to make a choice. If you don't make that choice, then there's nothing else I can do. But we have to, what I can do, and what I, as the mayor or all of us in public life, we have to provide that opportunity. In the same way with after school, summer jobs, there has to be that alternative, but you have to make a personal choice to have a different life and lead a different life. And sometimes we don't tie, and I'll give you one example. We're now, as I said, 26,000 summer jobs. 4 years ago, we were at 14,000. We now make the kids sign a pledge to go on to college. To participate in the summer job program, you got to show some initiative that you're not going to just have a summer job, you're going to do something else with your life. It's a subtle thing, small, it's not going to be a game changer, but it reinforces that personal choices, decisions you make, have an impact on your life. We have a role to play to help reinforce the positive choices you make. We have a role to play to make sure there are consequences to the wrong choices, but then to also always reinforce that you don't get a pass when it comes to the decisions you make. In the same way, and I know all of us in one way or another have touched on this, parents don't get a pass on being parents. You have a role to play in making sure your children know right from wrong, good from bad. And we can do everything we need to do on the public side to support parenting, but not to supplant it. And that is important that we reassert that value system.
So I just say this, these are always important questions, but mayors, here's how you can operationalize that. Visit one school every week, methodically and in a determined way, and go talk to kids. Go talk to them about responsibilities, hopes, aspirations, and dreams. The power of your image. Going into a classroom, and I like to visit schools and go to a classroom, not just a large auditorium, to talk to kids on a methodical basis, to talk to them about obligations, responsibilities. These young people today, particularly when they become 10, 11, 12, are paying much closer attention to issues that go on in the community. And also, it's a great way to find out what's going on and put your ear to the ground to get a sense of what's happening. It's one thing to say, let's talk about personal responsibility. It's another thing for all of us to use the pulpit, to use the platform, to use your voice, to use your collective will to talk to young people on an everyday, all the time basis. So I'm going to issue that as a challenge to all of you. Many of you do it, and many of you visit schools. If you could do it one per week, spend 1 hour each week at a school in your community, you'll have an impact on how these young people think and what they do and how they live.
And personal accountability, really quickly. It's a two-sided equation. So let's talk about the law enforcement accountability into that equation. We have to have policing agencies that look like the communities that we serve. And it can't be a long-term promise. We have to take immediate steps towards that. And that's what I push to the officers, because your experiences are going to be different than your experiences. And as we recruit people, I want a diverse police agency that has young people, young African Americans teaching older whites, older African Americans teaching younger whites, what the community is about. Because we heard from David Kennedy this morning that communities that have these stronger relationships see crime reductions. And so if we can start to have the accountability side on the law enforcement, what are we going to do? We have to look like the communities that we serve and be committed to it, and realizing that it's a small number of people that commit the crimes, and focus on the people that commit the crimes, not the race.
The biggest thing like we're trying to do in Chicago, and I always reinforce this, We can either patrol a community or be part of a community. And if we're patrolling it, you're going to have a limited impact. If you're part of a community, you're going to build the trust and cooperation that's essential for safety and legitimacy of the police department.
So this brings us, we could be here all day talking about this, and I'm sure some of us could talk all day. But I do want to exercise the prerogative as the moderator to give us the last question. And we're going to start with you, Chief, because a lot of what this boils down to is trust. And we know the issues that we face across our cities. We know that there's no switch we can flip to end racism. There's no button we can push to end income inequality. But there has to be things that we can do to improve trust. As a chief, what would you tell mayors to do to help build trust between the community and the men and women that you lead?
So I think we first started, and Mayor Slay in St. Louis is doing this, a public commitment to diversify the police department. St. Louis is about 50% African American. We're at 36% policing right now. We have a way to go. That shows a commitment to understanding the problem. We take all of our office through implicit bias to understand their differences, and those differences aren't bad. We need to do that. So mayors need to invest in their police departments, make a long-term commitment to diversity, and give them the tools and the training, because every encounter, and we have over 300,000 911 calls that we respond to every year. Every one of those has the potential to be a Michael Brown or an Eric Garner. We have to make sure we have quality police officers that look like the community and are open and transparent.
President Morial, trust.
No, I agree with all that he said, because if you walk the streets of communities, they will say, and Mayor Landrieu in New Orleans, there was a time when the police department didn't look like the community. That may not be the case today, because you've got a predominantly African-American police department, and you can still have issues with a predominantly black police department, right? Diversity alone will help but doesn't do the trick. Secondly, and this was an issue in New Orleans, the sense that most of the police officers lived outside of the city. And by virtue of that, their kids didn't go to school, they didn't worship, they were not, quote, part of the fabric of the community. These are barriers to overcome. I fought and enforced a strong domicile ordinance. It isn't the case that one exists today in a city like New Orleans. But you've got to hear what people are indeed saying. Thirdly, and importantly, you've got to embrace and understand that the philosophy of, the tactics and the strategies of community policing are not a cliche. It's about commanders having relationships with community leaders. It's about officers understanding that they are not evaluated on simply racking up arrest numbers, that what we are thinking about or what we want to focus on is overall reduction in violence. And that means understanding that the police department is just one part of the system, and that there are other parts of the system like prosecutors and courts that are a part of it. To build trust, I also think the mayors, again, must use their leadership to indicate that they're going to put their credibility on the line to build that trust between officers, the police department and its institution, and communities. It isn't an easy challenge, but as I said, if you don't own the problem, you'll never own the solution.
Thank you. Mayor
I want
Landrieu.
to echo that with a bunch of exclamation points. Do not be afraid of this. You have to run to it. This notion that somehow the community, in this instance the African American community, does not want to work with or partner with the police departments is wrong. That is not correct. What they don't want is an oppressive police department that is making arrests based on race and not behavior. A lot of the crime is taking place in the neighborhoods and people want to be protected. The police department has to be of the community. You have to earn this. And so the mayor makes an excellent point. In the city of New Orleans, the police department is majority African American. Our police department looks like the city, But in the last 5 years, everybody on that department has had to earn it back. And community policing is the way that you do it. You don't drive through the neighborhood, you stop and you talk. Somebody needs help, you give them help. Now, if someone needs to be arrested, the consequences have to be meted out, but they have to be fair and they have to be transparent. When there's a police-involved shooting in New Orleans now, after 5 years of working through the consent decree, Mayor, as soon as that happens, PIB, which is your old MOI, shows up on the scene. The federal monitor shows up. The independent police monitor shows up. And then all of a sudden, there's a thorough and transparent investigation so that the public knows that what's happening is fair. Now, the outcome isn't always predetermined. In some instances, right, the police officer did the wrong thing. In that instance, that officer gets indicted and or convicted. And the mayor's exactly right. When that's wrong, the police department, the unions themselves have to say, listen, under those circumstances, when the officer did the wrong thing, we're not going to stand there and try to justify that behavior. On the other hand, when the officer did the right thing, when his life was in danger, when he was protecting other people, and the prosecution and the investigation worked the right way, the community more often than not will back it up. But this only happens when they're part of the process, when they feel like there's a relationship between the two and there's trust. And the only way you can do this is the hard way. You got to earn it every day. And you got to prove it over and over again because it's a trust but verify situation. And we are in the circumstances that have occurred in our nation across all of our cities should demonstrate that we do not have this right in America right now. There is upset on the streets, there's miscommunication, there's lack of trust. You got to get it back. The point is it's gettable. And the public wants to be one with the police department, and the police department has to understand how they have to be one with the community as well. And we're just going to have to work through this very painful time. There is success on the other side of this, but you have to focus on it as though not it's just a law enforcement issue, but it's a public health threat too. And it's all the other stuff that we talked about, because you got to be good on the law enforcement side, but you got to be good on the preventative side too, that deals with early childhood education, summer jobs, and opportunities for folks.
I start and have always believing in community policing, that every encounter between a law enforcement and a resident is a teachable moment. And if they walk away positive, you got something that you're going to draw on when you need it, which is essential to safety. The trust factor is not just a goal, it's a key ingredient to effective community policing, which is what you need for safety. Second, the public has to know there's a legitimate oversight. It's certain, and it's not biased. And the truth is we're working at that, our city, other cities, because there's a lot of judgment that the oversight has been lax and there's not an accounting system. Third, and I think the most important thing, is helping facilitate where folks in the community see beyond the badge. There's a father, there's a coach, or a father or mother, there's a coach, there's a parent, there's people that are more complex in their lives. They're not just a uniform and a badge. In the same way, the kids that they encounter are not just a kid with tattoos or a hoodie, that they too are siblings, they're parents themselves, and get beyond the stereotypes. I've been facilitating these meetings across the city, and I want to echo something that everybody has touched on, where I bring the local community police officer, community leaders, aldermen. The community that is being most affected by distrust, begging for the police department to host their roll calls out in the community, in the neighborhood, not in the precinct. So the superintendent's about to put a memo out to all the commanders. Periodically, we want you with some regularity, holding, in fact, the roll call that you do in the department out there in the community so it's visible because they want to see you. Second, if you support the police department, go in and tell them you're doing a good job. They too need to hear periodically and have that relationship, and it's simple things. One of the things we're doing, obviously, about a third of our department in short order is going to have body cams. That gives people trust that there's another set of eyes. And this came from a resident, a woman about 2 summers ago. We have officers on bikes, mainly in the central business district, et cetera, but we started a pilot. We were opening up a playground. And this woman about 40 feet away started walking. And you know, when the resident has that lock, you go, okay, what's this? And we were cutting the ribbon on the playground. I was like, okay, here we go. You know, she comes in and goes, I got something to say to you. I said, okay. I want to say thank you. I said, oh, you know, you don't get that often in our jobs. And I go, what's that? She goes, ever since they put police officers out on bikes, they are stopping more frequently at the playground at the park And now I let my older son walk my younger son to the playground in the park. And so we've doubled the amount. We're now up to 400 bicycle police officers patrolling our neighborhoods and communities because they will stop at the front stoop. They will start at the playground. They will be on the street corner where kids are leaving school. And that interaction pays dividends invaluably. And now we're thinking of expanding that even further. So all these pieces of accountability, discipline, interaction, all the things reinforcing, all driving towards a trust factor that gives the cooperation for community policing and the essential legitimacy and the effectiveness of community policing.
Well, I cannot thank you enough. One of the things that I've tried to focus on as president is really tackling the tough issues head on. I think you've done that today. I know that I'm grateful for this conversation, and I hope all of you who are here are as well. Please give our panelists a round of applause.
Appreciate it.
All right. We are going to continue, so I ask if you are moving out of the room, please do so quietly. It is my pleasure. Uh-oh. All right, we got to calm down a little bit. All right, so it is my pleasure to make the 2016 Play Ball announcement with one of my favorite people, and not just because he was a Baltimore Oriole, but maybe that is too. I mean, but he's certainly made his mark in our community well beyond his baseball years. I'm so pleased to be here with Cal Ripken Jr., Mr. Ironman, and from my hometown Baltimore Orioles. Last summer, I joined with 140 mayors across the country in sponsoring play ball events in August. Hundreds of kids got involved in playing the game of baseball due to our efforts. And this year, Cal and I are happy to announce that 2016 Play Ball will play ball this summer. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Cal Ripken, Special Advisor to the Commissioner of Baseball, who will make this announcement on behalf of Major League Baseball.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I'm here on behalf of Major League Baseball to make an announcement about MLB and Minor League Baseball's partnership with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. As you know from his remarks to you last year, Commissioner Manfred is committed to growing baseball, particularly in the underserved communities. That's where the Play Ball campaign comes in. Since retiring in 2001, man, that's quite a long time ago, I've focused my energy on growing the game of baseball through the grassroots levels, through the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation, and also from Ripken Baseball. Recently, Commissioner Manfred named me as a senior advisor to help lead MLB's efforts in this area. So if you add up the time, I've been 15 years in this space. And so we've made some successes, and I've learned a heck of a lot. But one thing I've learned is that kids nowadays need to be directed. They're used to being organized in every part of their schedule. They go from one thing to another. And even in their free period of time, they have to be directed. So when my son was young, I remember having a choice. Ryan, in his free time, loved his video games. And he was playing video games of baseball. And he wanted me to sit down and enjoy his video games with him. And so I made a choice. It would have been fun to sit down and talk to him and play his video games with him. But I said, Daddy likes to play the real sport. Dad likes to go out and play catch and do those sorts of things. So if you want to spend this time now going out and playing catch with me, then I'm game. So I'm pleased to tell you that every time I offered that suggestion to him, he chose me. And so we would go out. We wouldn't play a whole game. We'd be playing parts of games. We would enjoy some of the simple pleasures of dad and son playing catch, him learning how to play parts of the game. And so That's really what the Play Ball campaign is all about. The Play Ball campaign encourages all kids to enjoy and experience the sport in a fun and casual environment. The goal is to remind people that there are many ways to enjoy baseball that don't necessarily require 2 teams of 9 players and a full ball field and umpires. Last year, MLB started the Play Ball campaign with the help of some of you in this room. And this year, we want to expand the campaign to more cities across the country. This year's program will be called Play Ball Summer. We need your help, and we are encouraging all mayors to host Play Ball events in their city between June and August this summer. Please fill out the pledge cards and here or online to host one or multiple events in your city. After you sign, MLB will contact your office and you will receive a toolkit and assistance with regard to staging the event in your community and spreading the good word. So thanks again. I would like to close with a short video, and I will be heading over to the exhibit hall for a short period of time if you guys want to stop and say hello. Thank you so much.
Play Ball is a grassroots program that's specifically designed to be particularly effective in urban areas where young people may not have adequate opportunities to interact with the great game of baseball. And we're very, very excited to get this program going.
You don't need 18 people, you don't need uniforms, you don't need a formal field to play the greatest game in the world. So today is an awesome initiative, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
It starts when you're this big, so to get them to see that, we're human beings too, and that we can relate with them a little bit, it's great, and it's good for their confidence.
All players from the Rainier Vista Boys and Girls Club. Let's hear it for the Rainier Vista Boys and Girls Club.
Play ball!
This Play Ball initiative is good for our communities and our children, especially in underserved communities, and we're trying to create an environment that's positive and deals with healthy lifestyles. And if mayors can bring people together to share what baseball and that experience is all about, it's going to make a huge difference. And there's a new Willie Mays out there just waiting to grab a glove and a bat.
Too many times we have kids in our city that have never even seen our ballparks. For whatever reason, they've never been able to go to a game. And so to actually not only get them inside the stadium, but to get them onto a field, it's a special thing for a kid. And you never know when that spark is going to lead to something further.
First time I started playing baseball, it's got to be in the front yard. My parents, my dad, obviously played, and he got me into it. And always played every day, in the house, everywhere.
Coming from Elizabeth, walking the same streets that these kids walk, and giving back, teaching baseball, one of the things that helped me become who I am today. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Seeing the hundreds of kids come out today with the sponsorship of Major League Baseball and the City of Elizabeth coming together to play the grand old sport, it really does great things for our community.
You are why we do what we do every day. It's great for me to see you active and engaged in such a positive activity. That's what this program is all about. Not just to teach you to play baseball, it teaches you about teamwork, and it teaches you about community.
Play Ball is an initiative through the U.S. Conference of Mayors and Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball. To come here and play ball in a professional stadium, one of the best in the country, that's really cool.
This is a big night. A lot of these kids, this is the first time a lot of them have been to a Major League Baseball game, let alone down on the field. It's really been a night that these kids will remember the rest of their lives.
That was awesome! Good job!
Thank you very much, Cal. And like your son, if given the choice, I think most of us would choose you if, if they had the option. I'm also happy to announce this year that we are asking mayors during opening day weekend, April 3rd and 4th, to wear a baseball hat of your favorite team, and I have mine right here, and post it on social media. So at your, mayors at your tables are the Play Ball pledge card. I don't have one to hold up, but do you have one? No, this is mine, yeah. But there's a pledge card on the table. Look for it. And drop it off at the Play Ball booth outside the hallway. Cal will be there for a few minutes to talk to you, and maybe I can encourage him to take a few photos with you as well. Thank you again, Cal. All righty, we are almost done. Now I would like to invite our former president and mayor of Burnsville, Elizabeth Counts, to make our next presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. It has been a full 7 hours in the first day of our plenaries of our meeting. Now, I don't know about you, but just this plenary session, we have addressed how to keep our city safe, acknowledged all of our partners who help us and sponsor our events and our meetings. We have helped our children and our families to be healthy and strong. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to acknowledge the partnership that we have with one of our longtime platinum sponsors who has helped us with small business to thrive in our communities and also to ensure that our communities continue to be prosper. It was 17 years ago at our 68th winter meeting that Tom Cochran and George Cloutier from American Management Service created the Partner America program. Partner America is a U.S. Conference of Mayors small business program designed to assist mayors in providing the resources and information small businesses need to thrive within their local communities and global economy. Since its inception, Partner America has held approximately 70 small business events across the country, bringing mayors and small businesses and their owners together to learn about local, state, and federal programs that assist small businesses owners. In fact, my city of Burnsville hosted one of these events almost 14 years ago, and I can tell you, mayors, that bringing in Partner America helped our small business to understand what they can do to succeed. Partner America program has conducted numerous small business polls and has bestowed the Small Business Advocate Award to mayors that have demonstrated outstanding leadership and support of their small business community. Both George and Lou have been speakers at our Small Business Task Force and small business events across the country. They have been a tremendous resource and our expert on small business matters. I would personally like to thank them for being the longest-standing platinum business partner with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and look forward to advancing our work with them to help our small business across the country grow and prosper. Because mayors, you all know that it is the small business in our communities that are the engine that is creating jobs, and we need them, and we thank George and Lou and the partnership in helping us to give us the resources, the knowledge to help our small business. And now, George and Lou, if you can please come forward to receive our gratitude with this award. As George and Lou make their way here, I'd like to read the plaque that we're presenting to them. The United States Conference of Mayors Leadership Award presented to American Management and Services, Inc., for providing outstanding leadership on behalf of mayors and the nation's small business community through its Partner America program, and for being a USCM Platinum Partner since 1999. And we bestow this and award them on January 20th, 2016, 84th winter meeting here in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. George, thank you. Thank you for your partnership. Now, I think everybody... Sounds good. George,
Is this us, too? Okay.
I'm always on the end. I'm the non-elected.
That's it. I think we're done. Our lunch is now adjourned.